This is The Celebration from 1998.
Oh,
This is directed and co-written by Thomas Vinterberg, starring Ulrich Thomason, Henning Moritzen, and Thomas Bo Larsen. And the IMDb plot summary is, at Helg's 60th birthday party, some unpleasant family truths are revealed. So this movie is actually piggybacking on some of the things we just talked about, in the sense of, for me, sharing a meal involves a lot of truths that can come out, whether they are, again, like you said, sort of fun things, but also incredibly serious and hard truths that maybe it was uncomfortable or hard to share outside of having that setting of food and drink around. So the unpleasant family truths that the IMDb plot summary is referring to is one of the sons at this party for his father gets up basically and has instead of a speech where he's saying, oh, happy birthday, it's your 60th birthday, blah, blah, blah. He accuses his dad of molesting himself and his sister, who just recently committed suicide. And it's this big revelation that sort of hits the family and the friends there with a bunch of, like huge shock. And there's a lot of fallout from that discussion. But then towards the end of the movie, actually, even in another dinner scene, there's several of these throughout the course of the film where the father basically admits that it was true. And at first he denies it, but at the end, again, that hard truth can come out. And I think that is not that this has ever happened to me even close in terms of the extremes of what this is like, has not happened to me. I just want to make sure that's super clear. But there has been a lot of situations with family and friends where you are at a dinner table and you just start saying things that you wouldn't have said otherwise, even behind closed doors. There is some sort of comfort in like, okay, there's food being shared here, and I want to say something very serious and very important, and this is the opportunity to do it. I mean, maybe, and this, I'll just speak personally, like sometimes it makes it easier to sort of speak hard truths in that setting, because there is sort of a comfort of like, okay, it's sort of relaxing. We're all just eating food and drinking and kind of sharing some things together. So if I want to say something unpleasant or a hard truth or something that's hard for me to admit, that situation makes it easier for me to do so, much like the character in this film, when, he had his entire life to mention this to anyone in his family that this is what was going on, and he never did, but this is the moment that he chose to do it. I think it, again, is a lot to do with the fact that it just a different dynamic when you're there around a dinner table. So just pausing there and just want to get your thoughts on the film if you'd seen it before and what you thought about it.
Yeah, I just want to first add to what you were saying, which is that, or it could be that there's something about getting together on a momentous occasion like that, which is his dad's birthday with family and food, that you just can't hold it anymore. That's the other thing, right? Like one hand could be it's a choice. I certainly can relate to that feeling that, oh, we're sitting down with family or friends, and there's been this thing that's been bubbling under for however long of a time period. And there's something about that setting that you just cannot take it anymore.
Right.
And I have so many memories of this kind. Again, this situation doesn't pertain to my life at all.
Right. Yes.
But
yes.
There've definitely been moments where I remember telling myself actively as I'm sitting down to eat that this is not the time to have this conversation. This is not the time to have this conversation. And then guess what? 10 minutes in, it's all out.
Yep.
Because I can't hold it anymore.
Yep.
So there's something about that too.
No, exactly. And that's why for me, this was a film I had to bring onto this list, because I've been in those situations again, nothing like the specifics of this film, right, but in many times where, you just, whether it's conscious or unconscious, hard truths come out, whether you decide to say it or someone else at the table is bringing it forward, and then you're surprised.
Something triggers it.
Something triggers it. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But I had not watched this movie before. I do love Thomas Vinterberg. Like, I think I put Another Round as one of my movies that shaped my 2021, I want to say, whenever that movie came out, which was amazing. And I think I've seen The Hunt with Matt Mikkelsen as well, which is amazing. So it was good to go back once again, watch a filmmaker's earlier work. The movie's relentless. I mean, from the get-go, it's designed to, make you uncomfortable with kind of the sort of home video lens treatment, and I don't even know if the print that I was watching is the best print of this movie, but it sort of felt, I guess by design, to be very, very shaky and very home video like, because I guess it's true, because it is kind of a family get together, right? And you could almost imagine if somebody is filming this as a video, but it's very uncomfortable right from the get-go. You can see that there's a time bomb ticking, as people start to come in, and the situations with all the siblings, that they all have stuff going on, and of course the death of the other sibling, the suicide, like you mentioned. Yes. So it's relentless. I will say though that it's quite hard to shoot these kind of, several people in a single space. Food is coming in scenes, and while all this emotional trauma is happening, like I think you really see his deftness as kind of handling that. That said, though, the movie feels like a bit of a school project, sort of. It has that kind of vibe to it because it's somebody's earlier work. You can see all the tricks are on display, but the performances are incredible, especially the main guy who has this revelation, and even the dad and the mom, the trauma that they're hiding, you can see in the dad's eyes of he knows that this is true. Yeah. And there's anger, there's guilt, there's shame, but there's also denial. Like all of that is right there. And so is the mother. The mother knows this.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Right. She's been in denial the whole time. Been
hiding it, pretending that everything is fine and not wanting to get into a conflict until she can't hold it anymore either, and is a total wreck by the end of it. So yeah, I mean, it's a brutal watch.
It definitely is. And just a note on the, like you were saying, with the aesthetic and the handheld and the crappy print. This was a film, was part of a movement called Dogma 95. I saw this. I saw this first movie in freshman year of college in a film class. That's the first time I had seen it, and we were just. This was after that movement was kind of over, but it was kind of a silly. I think it's silly, a film movement where you had to, as a director, adhere to certain rules that were given of, like, you're not allowed to use any ADR, you're not allowed to have a credit for yourself in the film, you cannot use any soundtrack, you have to use handheld cameras, you can't use any unnatural lighting. And there was like a list of like 12 decrees. And basically you'd make the film in that box with those rules. And then a panel would have to look at your film and give it a certification of, yes, you adhered to all the rules done.
Oh,
and
wow.
You actually remember, if you recall, in the very first beginning of the film, there's actually a certificate that gets shown. It's like Dogma 95 certified, blah, blah, blah. It was some movement that these filmmakers from this country had at that time. Again, I think it's kind of silly. However, those things I think do lend this movie to a more of an air of realism, because it feels like this is actually happening because of the handheld cameras, because of the more natural acting styles, because there are no lights set up anywhere, no score, no anything, and no sound. Actually, all the sound has to be picked up by the camera. There can't be additional sound equipment there recording sound. Again, I think it's kind of all silly, to be honest, but it does make this movie feel more real and raw, like those dinners where you are either hearing or saying hard truths can feel too. So I think it does work a lot with the aesthetic. And actually, when I was watching this, it reminded me of a movie that we recently covered, Rachel Getting Married,
right?
Where Jonathan Demme used a lot of the handheld. And I wonder if he was inspired, not necessarily by this film, but by that movement and what they were trying to do in the mid 90s, to lend that film just an air of realism and rawness too, which is a lot about a similar thing of family dynamics, and they're all there at a celebration. It's a wedding versus here is a birthday. But there are a lot of parallels between those two films, which, I mean, I think that film works a lot better. I mean, this film is an incredibly hard watch, and I'd only seen it actually that one time in college, so 20 plus years ago, but it always stayed with me, and it really impacted like how I look at dinners and things that I've had. I was like, oh yeah, no, this feels like that. That tough moment, like in Dogma, or not Dogma 95, in the celebration, where these things are kind of coming out, these revelations are happening. But it's a very hard watch, and I don't know when I'd see it a third time, if I ever would. But no. I think the movie does capture that feeling incredibly well. Of sharing,
the bread is captured really well. Yeah, and there's something, as always, right? Whenever artists are handed constraints, it can be liberating in some ways, I suppose, to create a very specific mood and atmosphere, and that's definitely here. I think why I mentioned that this feels like a little bit of a film schooly thing is because all the traumas are kind of layered. It's like a layer cake of trauma, right? Like there's no moment of levity whatsoever, and that's sort of what makes me question that if this is meant to be so real life-like, there will be moments of levity. There will be moments of like silliness and goofiness, because people can't be in the state of trauma all the time,
Right.
And I wish that was sort of peppered in a little bit more with the pacing or what have you. That would have just made this movie even better, which is kind of what Rachel Getting Married has. It has like some really harsh moments, but then every once in a while you meander, or there's something else going on, which kind of balances out a little bit.
Right. Unlike in this movie, they don't beat Rachel up and tie her to a tree halfway through the meal because she's saying something that no one else wants to say, which happens in this movie. I mean, it's crazy what all the things that go on in this film, which, like you said, is sort of from the get-go, the opening shot, okay, something's coming, and then it just keeps going. It just is so depressingly difficult of a watch. Though, again, meals can turn into that too when these situations of talking about hard truths come out.
Yeah. And I guess the other interesting thing is it's kind of clever is that the chef and the whole kind of wait staff and the kitchen staff, it seems like that they have a very personal relationship with this guy who's going to reveal this truth. So it's interesting that they are kind of in on it, that they've been waiting that, finally he gets to say all this out loud. And they're almost kind of helping with that. So it's kind of interesting that the makers of the food are actually part of this grand truth-telling reveal that's going to happen.
Yes, that's true. Right. It's not only the meal itself, but the people making the meal are helping to create this environment where the truth must be told.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah. Again, if folks haven't seen this movie, I do recommend checking it out. Again, just knowing you're getting into a very, very difficult watch. I just wouldn't expect people to be like, oh yeah, I watch this every Thanksgiving. Every year, this is my holiday movie. Definitely not one of those.
And it's not your, reality TV, Real Housewives around the dinner table explosion and drama happening either that you can sort of laugh at or what have you. This is not that.
Right.
I will say though, and this is maybe it's the dogma thing that you were talking about, that as brutal as it was, I was hooked. I couldn't look away. It was a car crash that you wanted to see, and but not in a voyeuristic kind of way, the way a lot of people derive pleasure watching reality TV, but more from a place of, at least for me, like deep concern about what is happening. Like, are these people going to be okay? And or just wanting to know the truth behind it all. That's the part that kept me with it. Otherwise, me, like I lose interest if I'm being beaten over the head, like what happened with me a little bit in Requiem for a Dream. Like I then start to see the filmmaking at play, right? That, okay, this is what the director wants to just relentlessly lay all this on you all the time. I'm numb now, after a while. That didn't happen to me in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, you are, I think, because of the Dogma 95 technique, you feel sort of like you're a guest at the dinner, and you're like, whoa, is this, because in the beginning you're not sure whether it's true or not what he's accusing his father of. It's unclear really in the narrative until it goes on and you realize not only is it true, that was the reason why the daughter committed suicide because of it, but you do feel like a guest. And I think that is the power of, maybe it is the Dogma 95 thing or just the story or the actors or how the director handled this, but yeah, you do feel sucked in for sure, as hard as it is. Like you want to leave the dinner table, but you also would like, okay, is this, you want to leave, but you don't want to leave. And that's sort of what you feel like as someone watching the film too.
I couldn't agree more. And there's no like, again, not to, throw Aronofsky under the bus, but like if it were him, there'll be some like food metaphoric shot of like food being prepared, right? Like jump cuts and like animation or like some fun ways to capture, a dish is being prepared and that's supposed to symbolize the trauma. No, there's none of that. You're just, like you said perfectly, you're a guest at this wedding and you're like, what the hell is happening?
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.